And good morning, everyone. Wave meteorologist Brian Good. I hope you guys doing okay here on this Tuesday, September 17th. Moving right along, last Tuesday of the summer season. And a bit of a change. You may have noticed, but more on the cloudier side outside, at least for a good chunk of you watching right now. And yes, we do have some rain on the radar to track as well. We're going to cover that. Of course, this whirling dervish off to our east, how it's still going to influence our weather for the next couple of days. We'll get into the weekend. There have been some changes. The weekend forecast, I will say, has a fairly low confidence set up on any rain potential based on the position of a front we're going to be tracking. Next week gets a little wow. We start to see a little bit more of a battle of the seasons, whether it's the tropics and the change into a more fall pattern, start to really show up. And for the first time, there is a milestone. There's two different milestones that I bank on at the beginning and end of the winter season around here. And the one that kicks off the beginning part has just happened. And I will show you that coming up as well as some of the longer term talk. Okay, so more to cover on that in just a few minutes. As always, you guys can comment on Facebook and Twitter, X, Twitch. Is that everywhere else? It's hard to keep up anymore. But I see your comments on there. So good morning to Joel and to Carrie up in Marengo, Indiana. Hope all is well there. And Jason, good to see you as well. And Judith. So I appreciate you guys chiming in. And if you have any questions, let me try to explain the entire setup. And if you still have questions, by all means, let me know. Okay, let's get right to it. Let's start with the overcast sky. This is in New Albany. And this is the way it's going to look for the rest of the day. It is not going to improve. So if you have clouds that have arrived in your area, you're likely going to hold on to the clouds for the rest of the day. And that's going to make a big temperature difference too, with some areas certainly being stuck in the 70s at best, and other areas getting closer to the upper 80s, maybe even close to 90 in an isolated case. I think right now that's going to be our northern counties that would see that, if anything. Radar is busy. Some of this is noise from the radar beam in Louisville. Some of this is actually legit rain. So let me try to tighten this up a bit more. And now we're just focused on the main opportunity to get raindrops to the ground level. And that's going to be in Frankfort and Lexington, now entering our eastern counties from around the Parkways area of Washington County, Kentucky, all the way down into Adair. It is moving west. Now, the air is noticeably drier. Once you cross, I mean, we joke about it a lot, how the interstates or the river have a dividing line of meteorology and climatology around here, right? But in this case, again, I-65 will be a dividing line of somewhat humid air to very dry air. And that's going to eat alive at all the raindrops that try to cross the boundary of 65 and go west. So I can't rule it out. You may get a bit of rain in Salem. You may get a few drops in Meade County and Litchfield. Absolutely, it's possible, but your better opportunities to the east. All right, so keep your reports coming in, MPM reports, if you guys use that site. They're coming in from you guys, the viewers, that are out there with their phones, just kind of marking what they're experiencing. You can have the opportunity to put in the type of precipitation as well, and they are certainly seeing some, at least light rain in near the capital and also into Washington County, Kentucky. This is only going to amount to a few hundredths of an inch, maybe a tenth of an inch, and some of those heavier pockets, but you're going to be closer to the I-75 corridor. All right, here is the low. It never got named, and it could get named in an analysis later. That happens a lot when the hurricane season's over, and they go back and look at the systems that were kind of halfway to that mark to see if whether or not they did get to that status. This is one that, based on the radar interpretation, everything I was seeing yesterday, I got a feeling that it will likely be classified as a named storm, but anyway, that's paperwork. At this point, this low pressure is going to be stuck where it is, so that's the reason why, again, not a lot is going to change for about 36 hours. It'll be a constant feed of clouds coming in from the east. If you're west 65, you'll enjoy some sunshine. East, don't bet on it. Isolated showers to be around. A lot of this is going to be somewhat daytime based, so as we get into tonight, I can't rule out a brief area of drizzle. Most areas will stay dry. Now, tomorrow's a little different, and we're still under the influence of the backlash of the low, but there will be a few more sun breaks mixed in to that western side of the cloud shield, and therefore just slightly a little more unstable. So I think tomorrow actually will carry an opportunity to get lightning bolts with some of the showers that form versus today. No, that's not going to happen, but tomorrow it could. And therefore a little warmer too, about mid-80s for the area. But nothing too crazy on either setup. Once we get into Thursday, the low itself, it's still there. It just drifts back to the east. And believe it or not, this low may very well be on the weather map for even another week or so. It'll just hang out in the mid-Atlantic area of the country. But it'll be moving away from us. So its only influence is only just in the short term for the next couple of days. Okay, then we gear up for the heat to build in toward the weekend and our next challenge that awaits us as we head into especially Sunday. The reason for that, and this is hard to tell by looking at this map, but here is actually the tropical low that was not named that's near us. Here it is now, again, back off to the east as we head into the weekend. We have two low pressures, actually, one developing in the plains, one way up into Canada. There is a front that is draped down through the Midwest. This is a pretty blocky pattern here, so it's really hard to get any front. It's really a prime spot for tropical systems, but it's not for cold fronts. Pretty violent for a front to try to get into this region. So this front will sink into the Midwest, perhaps some severe weather for them as it does, but it will have a very difficult time. You see it tilts, kind of rolls off our back, as I always like to say, kind of tilts a little more east-west by the time we're into Sunday night into Monday. It wants to settle through here. Some of the modeling does want to push all the way through. Some do not. What is happening, and it's hard to draw, but I'm going to attempt it, is you basically have a push going this direction into the Ohio Valley. You have a low pressure that is developing into Nebraska. That's pushing air up as well into Missouri. And then you have a front on the northern side that is moving through the Midwest, pushing the air back down. All right, so what does that all mean besides more than likely the quarterback's got the play? I don't know. As we look at this, it's one of those setups where the front is going to actually tilt. You got one side of it going one direction, one being lifted in another. And the challenge with that is when you have this seesaw effect is where do we fit into that when that seesaw effect happens? Will that be more for an Indianapolis area where they have to deal with the tilting of the front, or will the front be along I-64? Makes a big difference on your weekend plans and whether or not you get rain and thunderstorms into wave country. So that's why, again, the forecast setup for especially the latter half of the weekend is low confidence, just because we need to figure out how far south that front will indeed travel, and that could change the rain chances. If it does not make it here, I'm telling you, it's going to stay hot. We're going to stay in the lower 90s. Once the front moves on by, it's going to take a bit to get this next low to move through here, but it should at some point next week, and dropping us down into a much cooler setup later next week. But the tropics are very prime. GFS is going bonkers on a significant tropical threat that would influence the Gulf and portions of Florida. The Euro is not to that point, but all the models show something developing in the Gulf as we into later next week. That will be something we'll have to watch, because, again, now we're getting these fronts coming through. As always the case, it's about timing and whether or not we can get another fading system that would move north. You see the last couple frames, there it is right there. Whether or not we would get something that would be weak and move in and give us a drought-busting rain, which is still possible, but we got some time before it plays out. All right, any questions on all that? I feel like I really rambled a long time about a front. Okay. Oh, you'll notice my tie. Thanks, Angie. I didn't know if anybody's going to notice that or not. I can't even see it because these monitors are so small for me. And I'm getting old. Okay, so are you guys ready to show? Let me show you the signal. We love when you ramble. Carrie, you're definitely in the minority on that one. Severe weather chances toward the end of the month. Possibly anytime, Cameron, you get a season changer type front scenario, you're going to get a second severe weather season. So that's possible. I have not seen a huge signal, though, right now for it, mainly because of moisture. I think moisture is going to be a problem with any severe risk for a while. The drought is going to really choke most of the fronts. So that'll have to be sorted out later. All right, let me show you the signal. This is, again, one of the milestones. This is nothing major, but I'm dramatic with snow. But there is an update that comes out on from the European model. And when it comes out twice a week, it gives a long-range update on different parameters: rain, snow, you have it, temperature. It does always give an outlook on snow. And I always declare that we're done. Winter is done when you have the last member. We have different ensembles on these models, and to get overly technical here, but they're all different opinions that a model has on what will happen. If they're all saying the same thing, then get ready, things are going to get wild. If you only have one saying something, then the chances of that happening are extremely low. And obviously, if they're not saying anything, nothing's going to happen. But it's a way to really gauge a long-term trend on data. And this particular model, when the season is over with, I declared, anyway, in my mind, that it's done when the last ensemble pops in with a snow chance and is done. Once that is gone off the long-range modeling, I'm like, okay, that's it. There's no more hope for us on winter. I always hold out to the last minute, right? Well, the update for today came out, and the first one of the season came out for October. What is that? I can't read it. Late October, near Halloween. All right, you guys excited? Type 1 if you're excited. Type 1. Yay, Euro, for putting us at least back on the chart again. It'll probably be gone in the next update, but hey, I'm looking for a sign. And by the way, if you're looking at that little dot and like, what would that mean? That would be like a flurry. But hey, that's all right. Again, for me, that means winter is on now that we have that. And speaking of that, we are keeping an eye on some of the long-term modeling. Let me show you, in fact, this is the from Pivotal Models. This shows one of the long-range models called the CFS. I know this is maybe a little hard to see, but let me animate this. Again, Kentucky is right over here, if you guys can see that. So it's showing in the long range as we head throughout the rest of September into October, a very active storm track, still several systems diving in from the north, and still at times you get these tropical hints too in the Gulf, which is interesting. But look at the more wintry look that we keep getting on that. CFS is going to change dramatically each and every run. So don't hold this to gospel, what you're looking at, but the trend. And I've been watching this over and over, and that trend, especially early to mid-October, to get these pretty significant cold attacks into Canada is going to make things interesting, especially with the tropics. You see the tropics be involved as I move it back and forth for October. This is why I think, again, that we're likely going to get some type of early frost potential in the area. Let me show you on temperatures. This is probably easier way to show it. You got a few pockets of cool. Again, obviously the warmer colors mean warmer than normal aloft, and the cooler colors being cooler. You see a little bit of cool weather in the southeast. Some of that is tropical related, but then you really just suddenly get into October, and we just get into this cold attack that starts to develop. Everything's lining up. It's a very blocking pattern, lines up perfectly to drive that colder air south. Especially when you're in a drought scenario, you can really get low in a drought scenario earlier than usual. And it just tries to keep repeating itself all the way through mid-October. So we'll see. We'll see indeed if that is the case down the road. But that's kind of what I've been watching. So I always want to be transparent with you guys. The items that we're monitoring, and see if they stick around or not. Sometimes they do fade away. All right, they get you to the 10-day, and I'll get quiet here because I get ready for the midday show. There we go again with that heat building in. Again, a bit cloud cover induced cool weather for today and part of tomorrow. We get into, though, the weekend. Again, it's going to be hot this weekend for Bourbon and beyond. Fall begins, yay, Sunday morning. We'll need to watch Sunday again into Monday and see if that front sags into the area. If so, these numbers you see there are going to be much lower. Rain chance numbers will be much higher. So, yeah, the outlook for the end of the 10-day is lower than normal confidence, to be clear for you guys. Okay. Thank you all as always. Appreciate it. You all take care of yourselves, and I will see you all on the flip side.